We have. At the beginning of World War I, Germany went off the gold standard and suspended the right of its citizens to redeem their currency, the mark, for gold and silver. Like all wars, World War I was a war of and by the printing press. The number of marks in circulation in Germany quadrupled during the war. Prices, however, had not kept up with the inflation of the currency supply, so the effects of this inflation were not felt. The reason for this peculiar phenomenon was because in times of uncertainty, people tend to save every penny, and World War I was definitely a time of uncertainty. So even though the German government was pumping tons of currency into the system, no one was spending it, yet. But by war's end, confidence flooded back along with the currency that had been on the sidelines, and the ravaging effects worked their way through the country as prices rose to catch up with the previous monetary inflation. Just before the end of the war, the exchange rate between gold and the mark was about 100 marks per ounce. But by 1920, it was fluctuating between 1,000 and 2,000 marks per ounce. Retail prices shortly followed suit, rising by 10 to 20 times. Anyone who still had the savings they had accumulated during the war was bewildered when they found it could only buy 10% or less of what it could just a year or two earlier. Then, all through the rest of 1920 and the first half of 1921, inflation slowed, and on the surface the future was beginning to look a little brighter. The economy was recovering. Business and industrial production was up. But now there were war reparations to pay, so the government never stopped printing currency. In the summer of 1921, prices started rising again, and by July of 1922, prices had risen another 700%. This was the breaking point, and what broke was people's confidence in their economy and their currency. Having watched the purchasing power of their savings fall by 90% in 1919, they knew better this time around. They were smarter. They had been here before. All at once, the entire country's attitude toward currency changed. People knew that if they held on to their currency for any period of time, they'd get burned. The rising prices would wipe out their purchasing power. Suddenly, everybody started to spend their currency as soon as they got it. The currency had become a hot potato, and no one wanted to hang on to it for a second. Now, on the next page, I talk about the front page of the New York Times 1923, and I reference some information there. And I just happen to have a reprint of the front page of the New York Times from 1923. And there's an article here about the German hyperinflation. But what I find more interesting than that is the entire paper is this wonderful time capsule. And if you replaced the names and dates and names of countries and so on in most of these articles, it would all be pertinent today. You'd think that you were reading today's newspaper. But when it comes to this article on the German hyperinflation, it talks about these paper mills pumping out 45 billion marks per day. Now, this is the February edition of the New York Times. By November, those paper mills were pumping out 500 quadrillion marks per day. So now we're going to take a look at velocity and how it could affect us in the future. So this is me. Now, I developed this keynote presentation to make understanding velocity easy. Most economists make it sound really complex and people don't think they can understand it. But stick with me, I think you'll enjoy this. When you're measuring velocity, you're measuring the number of times each unit of currency changes hands. I'm going to have lunch and I'm going to pay the waiter. I'm going to tip him $1. And then he parked in a red zone that morning, so his car got towed. He's going to have to take a cab home, and he's going to pay that cab driver that same dollar when he gets to his destination. Then later on that day, the cab driver is going to have to fill his cab with gas, and he's going to use that same dollar again as part of the payment to pay for his tank of gas. So that dollar was used in 1, 2, 3 transactions. It had a velocity of 3 that day. In other words, $1 bought $3 worth of goods and services. Now we're going to kick this up a notch, and we're going to call this a country of 10 people, this economy of just 10 people, and their currency supply is $1. That's the only dollar that exists. And it circulates once, and so you've got $1 times a velocity of 1 equals a GDP. The size of the economy is $1. If it circulates twice, it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So $1 times a velocity of 10, or 10 transactions, equals a $10 GDP, the health of that economy. Now, if you expand the currency supply, we've given each one of these people $1. If they all make a transaction, there has now been 10 transactions, but each dollar was only involved in one of them. So it's a currency supply of $10 times 1 transaction each equals a $10 GDP. So even though you've got 10 times the currency supply, the economy has the same vibrance. There was 10 transactions, it equals $10. Then we have a second transaction, a third, a fourth. This could be a healthy economy. It could also be an economy running into hyperinflation. Keynesians, that's the type of economists that are running the modern day economy, believe that you can create a healthy economy by changing this figure here, the size of the currency supply. So the Federal Reserve thinks that by adding currency to the economy, that they're going to be able to stimulate it and make the economy grow. And the thing is, it isn't the quantity of currency, it's the amount of goods and services that are created in that country that determines the country's level of prosperity. So if you just add a bunch of currency, all it's going to do eventually is drive up prices. Velocity will slow at first, and that's what we're seeing now. Well, the same thing happened in Weimar Germany. This is the entire hyperinflation from the beginning of World War I in 1914 until the end of 1923. And most economists are attracted to this big hyperinflation on the end. But one thing I discovered when I was writing my book is that there's almost always a pre-hyperinflation hyperinflation, and we see one here, where there's this rise of prices and quantity of currency, and then it levels off for a little while, and then rises again. And this has to do with the psychology. This is the time where I said those people had been there before and experienced that. I'm going to zoom up on it, and so here you see the currency supply increasing. So they're doing monetary inflation, but prices stay level, and the price of gold actually dropped toward the end of the war. But as soon as the anxiety is lifted from the population and they start feeling better, all of that currency comes out of hiding and people start making transactions, and velocity picks up, and prices, and the price of gold especially, just rose dramatically and then leveled off some 16 times higher than they were originally. Notice that the currency supply is growing at a certain rate. The prices are delayed, and then bam, they rise to meet it and exceed it, and then stabilize to account for that quantity of currency. Now back to this original chart here, what I find interesting is that during the war it lagged, and then it caught up and matched the currency supply. But then as they kept on printing, velocity started to exceed the currency supply. So prices started to rise faster than they were printing currency, and that's the end game for hyperinflation. The big lesson here is that the people who owned gold and silver instead of the national currency came out relatively unscathed, or even made huge gains in their purchasing power. Now, this is the US currency supply from 1918 until today. And we've created all of this currency, but we haven't seen any ravaging inflation yet. And that is because velocity has fallen to compensate for the creation of currency. But there will come a time when the psychology of the country changes, and you will see, after this short-term deflation, where velocity falls even further, you will then see the velocity pick up and prices will rise. And I believe that we will go into a hyperinflation because they're going to create more currency than this. And that currency is going to be sitting there, and velocity will have slowed and slowed and slowed to compensate it until something changes psychologically. The beginning of every hyperinflation looks like everything is okay again.
那我们现在看到这个德国马克在这个货币的这个图表，然后看它相对的物价这个图表，我们前面它已经有讲了说，前面就是来了一个空窗期，明明这个货币印的比较多哈，可是这个物价却没有跟着我们所印出来的货币马上有个反应，这就是因为人们的心理关系。那要怎么解释这个哈？我们看后面这个货币速率的部分。现在我们看到这个图蓝色的部分就是货币速率，红色的部分就是我们现在印钞量。可以看到这个印钞量在右边迅速攀升的结果，货币速率迅速往下滑。所以这个货币速率往下滑，就是刚才影片所讲，我们大家印出来钞票那么多，可是在各个人的手上的流通的速度是非常慢，一直在下降。这可以解释，就是说我们现在经济活动是慢慢在趋缓的。就是大家比较不愿意消费，然后对未来比较悲观储蓄，然后也有可能是这个联储会所印出来的钞票还没有从最上端流到最下端。但不管怎样，可以知道一件事情，就是我们手上所拿的钞票比往过去的几年来说，我们所流通的速度是很明显的下降。那这样的下降结果，即便联准会印再多的钞票，我们也依然感觉不到这个物价即将上扬，这就是所谓的一个前置的空窗期。那它后面等到就是说，大家如果有一个心态上的转变的时候，这个钞票就是出来流通了，货币速率一旦增加的时候，就是引爆点，就是刚才德国马克那个图一样，它后面突然物价就非常的快速的赶上了这个印钞量。因此，我们现在只处在一个算是暴风雨前的宁静一个低谷一个 deflation 的那个通缩低谷 ，deflation 的通缩低谷。所以，因此，我们现在为什么说一定要让你看前面这影片就是让你知道说我们处在什么位置，我们要做什么准备这样。你现在看到这个货币速率和这个利率的图你可以看到那个货币速率是急剧下降的，然后联准会为了要刺激这个大家这个做出来这个 GDP 想要刺激大家消费嘛，它就会疯狂的印钞。那印钞的结果，它又降低这个利率到0希望大家不停的去消费，提升这个手上的货币速率。结果没想到货币速率一直降它只能一直不断的提供这个钞票，一直印钞而已。那这样的结果就会导致到最后必然的就是负利率。一旦负利率出现之后，人们如果觉得说，我现在与其放在银行，我不愿意再储蓄了，我也不愿意再把钱放在就是某处不动了，我宁愿把钱赶快拿出来花掉。然后一旦这个货币速率提升，会发生什么事呢？因为它前面所建制这个钞票的量已经非常的大了，所以货币速率只要增加一点点，马上物价会上扬的非常恐怖。何况是1倍、2倍、3倍出现的时候，它那个物价就会开始超通膨，像德国威玛共和时代那个超通膨会出现。那只是因为为什么现在没有超通膨，前面我已经解释，就是因为说现在目前的物价没有上扬的原因，是因为大家手上的钱不愿意消费，不愿意拿出来流通，经济实际状况很差，所以大家在这么保守的状况下是不会有所谓的物价急速上扬状况，因为货币速率非常的低。那现在货币速率一旦增加之后，联准会就会把它的利率往上调得很快，因为他发现完了，这个制造出超通膨这个状况已经没办法控制，我已经没办法再透过这个印钞票控制的时候，他难道把钞票消失吗？不可能，所以他一定会上调利率，会到5%、10%、20%来回收手上的利率。这个如果你觉得没办法想象说利率突然会上涨那么多，你可以去看其他国家被美元打到的时候，他们利率都会有一个很快的急剧的上扬。这就是因为他发现这个通货膨胀实在太严重，所以就必须 把手上利率就是政策这个利率把它调升，因此一旦调升的时候，都已经是危机的末期。那我们现在就是很害怕这个货币速率哦，大家一旦恢复信心，或者是因为被联储会打到这个负利率哦，逼得不得不出来消费的时候，这个时候会很恐怖，这个真的是全球化的这种超级通货膨胀就会来临。所以大家一定要记得，就是真的要买一些真金白银放在身边，即便是10%、20%也好，你放着好2-3年后，你就会看到一个很奇怪的情景，甚至也许不会那么快，也许5-6年后，但是那个情景会比武汉肺炎还非常恐怖，因为最后是呈现等比急速上升，会在1-2个月内物价翻1-2倍、3倍、4倍、5倍、7倍、8倍、9倍、10倍，这种慢慢这样翻上去，会总而言之，就像武汉肺炎的发生一样，让你觉得以前不可能的事情，好像现在都会发生。这是一个非常动荡的时代，但是只要你这个时候持有金银，你就不用担心你这个财富是被稀释的。因此，大家如果看完这个影片哦，可以再多重复看个2-3次，因为毕竟只有看个2-3次，你学习的部分才会就是深入你的骨髓，你才办法了解到说这个影片到底想要表达怎样的危险性。让大家知道这样好，谢谢。因为这个影片真的是花很多时间，如果你看完你觉得很不错的，希望把我这些 YouTube 现在做出来的这几集哦，把你身边你觉得很重要的，你把它给他看，让他知道说目前处在的这个环境就是这么危险。可是因为在暴风雨前的宁静哦，你完全不会觉得到未来有危险，所以现在白银还是真的非常便宜哈。你可以叫你身边人买一些，即便是1盎司也好，到时候都有可能会救了他的命，这是真的哦。好，那我现在就讲到这边，谢谢大家。